In a region where the sun touches the dunes and the soul of the earth speaks in silence, there are men and women who look where others refuse to glance. They do not follow the path lit by bright headlines or viral trends. Instead, they tilt their compass toward the quiet corners of opportunity, toward the unseen. Arab millionaires who build real wealth, lasting wealth, generational wealth, have one thing in common: they invest where others do not. Not because it is fashionable, but because it is visionary. They have trained their eyes to see value where the world sees risk, and to sense growth where others only perceive stillness. This is not luck. This is discipline, built over years of observing the movements of markets, people, and time. To invest in the unseen is to understand the difference between noise and signal. It is to stand at the edge of the desert and see not emptiness, but potential. These investors do not merely read spreadsheets, they read landscapes, human behavior, cultural shifts, and geopolitical winds. They look at a plot of barren land and see a logistics hub. They look at a sleepy town and see a future tourist capital. They see a coder working in a Cairo cafe and think not of where he is, but of where he could be with a little capital, a little guidance and belief. Many of them entered industries that were either dismissed or misunderstood. They placed capital in ports while others mocked maritime logistics as old world. They bet on agriculture in dry regions, introducing modern irrigation, turning sand into bread. They entered sectors like fintech, AI, drone logistics, sustainable energy, and digital trade when others were still trying to master e-commerce. And they did it not to prove anyone wrong, but because they saw farther. This habit to invest in what others cannot yet comprehend is not merely financial. It is cultural. It is embedded in the Arab psyche, in our legacy. Our ancestors traded across the Red Sea, the Indian Ocean, the Silk Road, not because it was easy, but because they sensed the unseen networks of value. That instinct lives on in today's Arab millionaires who do not follow the map, but draw it. They are not distracted by applause. If the public does not understand the investment today, it does not matter. They are not looking for validation. They are looking for impact. One of them once said, "The market is my mirror, not my mentor." They let data speak, but also intuition. And intuition is not mystical, it is the result of deep exposure, deep listening, and deep respect for timing. Timing indeed is everything. The unseen becomes visible not by force, but by season. These investors know that planting an idea before its season is foolish, but planting it just before the rain, that is genius. They enter at the moment when most are hesitant, not reckless, calculated. Silent but swift. In technology, they invest in startups before they trend on tech blogs. In infrastructure, they build airports where cities are still small, knowing that cities grow around movement. In human capital, they offer scholarships to children from villages, knowing that tomorrow's genius is not born in privilege but in potential. They understand that investing in the unseen is not only about money, it is about believing in the story before the first chapter is even written. And there is one truth they live by: value is often disguised as inconvenience. The market tends to reward simplicity, clarity, and proof, but the unseen rarely offers any of that. It comes wrapped in doubt, risk, skepticism. That is why few enter, but those who do, those who know how to sit with discomfort, how to walk in fog, how to trust both instinct and insight, those are the ones who arrive early. And when the fog clears, they are already there, waiting. This habit is not born in business school. It is born in mindset. It requires patience that stretches over years, and humility to admit when something is ahead of its time, yet still worth nurturing. It also requires courage to be misunderstood, often for long periods. They are comfortable being alone at first. That loneliness is a sign they are on the frontier, and the frontier is where wealth is built, not traded. They do not need the spotlight to validate their journey, because they are investing not only in assets but in foresight itself. In a world obsessed with numbers, followers, likes, contacts, connections. There are those who move differently. They do not count their circle in the dozens or hundreds. They do not seek to be everywhere with everyone at every event. The Arab millionaire who sustains and multiplies wealth does not build his empire through noise or public applause. He builds it in silence, surrounded by a few minds, chosen not for familiarity, but for effectiveness. Keeping the circle small is not about isolation, it is about precision. It is about understanding that every conversation has weight, every voice has influence, and every relationship either sharpens or dulls your vision. These individuals are not antisocial. On the contrary, they are deeply connected. But they are selective, ruthlessly so, not because they are arrogant, but because they are focused. When you are building something that matters, you cannot afford the distraction of shallow dialogue. Within these circles, each person plays a role. There is the advisor who tells hard truths even when they cut. There is the strategist who sees risk before it appears. There is the confidant who offers silence when the world is too loud. And there is often the mentor who has walked the road already, who speaks not often, but always with weight. These are not always people in suits or on stages. Sometimes it is the uncle who survived 3 economic crashes, the Bedouin elder who sees patterns in silence, or the young tech genius who sees the world as code. These circles are not formed overnight. They are forged over time, through trial and failure, through loyalty tested in private moments, not public wins. Trust in these spaces is sacred. Confidentiality is the unwritten law, because real wealth, is not only measured in numbers, but in decisions. And every major decision passes through this inner circle like a breeze passes through palm trees. Felt, filtered, weighed. Arab millionaires who build strategically do not let just anyone into that space. They understand that proximity is power, that the wrong voice at the wrong time can cost more than any market crash. They do not confuse charisma for competence. Many people know how to talk. Few know how to listen. Even fewer know how to think under pressure, and those are the ones they keep close. In these tight circles, disagreement is not discouraged. It is expected. It is welcomed. A good circle is not an echo chamber. It is a forge where ideas are tested, questioned, refined. The Arab elite who thrive long-term understand that comfort is not the goal of conversation. Clarity is. They do not surround themselves with those who nod quickly. They want the person who raises a brow, who asks, "Have you thought about this?" Or "Are you certain this is the right timing?" They would rather pause a deal than regret it later. The members of these circles are often invisible to the public. You will not find them on magazine covers or social media reels. They do not need to be seen. They need to be effective. Some are lawyers who understand the layers of international law. Some are engineers who speak the language of systems. Others are philosophers who anchor decisions in timeless principles. And some are simply elders, wise, calm, and quiet. They speak few words, but when they do, silence follows. There is also a moral compass in these circles. These millionaires, though strategic, are not void of values. In fact, their values often guide their decisions more than trends or profits. The people around them help keep that compass straight. When power begins to intoxicate, when success tempts shortcuts, when opportunity offers compromise, it is these few voices who bring perspective. Remember who you are, they say without needing to raise their voice. These strategic circles are also adaptable. The Arab millionaire does not cling to loyalty at the expense of progress. If someone in the circle no longer contributes, no longer grows, no longer sharpens, there is no drama, only distance. Evolution is a requirement. Sentimentality does not guide the inner circle. Performance, wisdom, and alignment do. Within these circles there is also a certain rhythm. Conversations are not rushed. Sometimes silence is more valuable than speed. These individuals understand that fast thinking is often reactive, but deep thinking is reflective. They create space for ideas to breathe, for analysis to mature, for intuition to speak. They meet over meals, walks, or quiet nights in Majli settings, not always in boardrooms or over spreadsheets. This circle is not just a business tool, it is a lifestyle. It becomes the filter through which every major life decision is made. Investments, partnerships, philanthropy, legacy planning, everything is weighed by the minds they trust most. And while the outer world may shout and speculate, the inner circle listens, thinks, and then moves, always later than the noise, but earlier than the crowd. Before the markets open, before the phones start ringing, before the sun fully stretches over the Gulf waters, there are those who are already awake, alert, centered, and in motion. The Arab millionaire who builds not just wealth but legacy does not start his day with urgency. He starts it with control. While others scramble into the chaos of the world, he enters it having already conquered the morning. Rising early is not simply a matter of discipline, it is a declaration of intent. It is a statement that time will be owned, not chased. The early hours are not filled with noise or demand. They are sacred. They are structured with habits designed not to impress, but to prepare. This is the space where the mind is clearest, unpolluted by the opinions of others or the unpredictability of the day. It is here, in the silence before the storm, that focus is forged. The morning routines of these individuals are not made for show. You will not see them posting their routines online, not because they are secretive, but because they are sacred. Many begin with prayer, connecting with the divine before connecting with devices. There is power in beginning the day by aligning with something higher than profit, higher than pressure. In that space, values are remembered, ego is humbled, and perspective is sharpened. After the spiritual foundation is laid, the body is not ignored. Whether through a brisk walk, a full workout, or a swim under open skies, they awaken the physical vessel that must carry the weight of responsibility. This is not vanity, it is strategy. The mind functions best when the body is in motion. Energy is not manufactured in caffeine alone, it is generated through movement. They understand that strength is not just mental, it is also physical, and the two feed each other. But the most defining part of their morning is what happens after the prayer mat and the gym. They think. Not in panic, but in clarity. They sit with pen and paper or a tablet and map the day, not by task lists alone, but by intention. What is essential today? Where must my energy go? Who deserves my attention? Which problem must I solve, and which problem must I let go? This reflection is not rushed. It is disciplined, because they know that a leader without clarity becomes a slave to circumstances. While others are reaching for their phones to scroll through news or notifications, they are reading something that strengthens the mind. It may be a few pages from a biography, a market report, a classical text, or the latest global economic trend. But it is never passive. Their input is curated, intentional, and sharp. They do not consume random information. They consume to prepare, to anticipate, to lead. When the rest of the world begins to stir, when emails start flooding and meetings begin stacking, they have already set the tone. They are not reacting, they are directing. Their first decisions of the day are made from stillness, not stress. This gives them an edge no strategy can teach, because by the time their competitors are finding their rhythm, they are already executing on what they decided hours ago. This habit of early rising extends beyond productivity. It is a mindset. It says, I will meet the world on my terms. I will not let urgency define me. I will not be a follower of momentum, but a creator of it. These individuals do not just wake early. They prepare early, think early, act early. They set their own pace, and in doing so they become immune to the noise that derails others. There is also a cultural depth to this rhythm. In many Arab households, the early hours have long been associated with blessing. Our ancestors understood that the barakah, the divine grace, resides in the first part of the day. Business owners, camel traders, poets, and scholars would begin before the heat of the sun, understanding that clarity, focus, and provision arrive early. Today's millionaire carries that same thread, modernized but not forgotten. Even travel is planned with this principle. When flights are booked, meetings are scheduled, deals are negotiated, they prefer to start early, not because they are rushing, but because they are aligned with a rhythm that breeds consistency. You will not find these individuals stumbling out of bed into chaos. Their days are engineered like architecture, structured, thoughtful, elegant. They have learned that a chaotic morning invites a chaotic day. So instead, they craft their dawn hours as leaders do not for show, but for sovereignty. In a world that glorifies the hustle, they choose the habit that quietly, steadily shapes empires. In a land where opulence is visible from the skyline and tradition walks hand in hand with modernity, it is easy to assume that wealth is defined by what one wears, drives, or displays. But those who have quietly built fortunes across the Arab world, those whose names are whispered in boardrooms but rarely appear on magazine covers, understand a deeper truth. They know that luxury is a language one they speak fluently, but not obsessively. For them, luxury is not identity, it is armor. These individuals may indeed step into rooms wearing tailored suits, gliding in vehicles that cost more than most homes, and staying in residences that echo with silence and space. But if you were to remove the symbols, the essence would remain untouched. The wealth they possess is not in the watch, the car, or the marble floors. It is in the mindset, the strategy, the self-control. They have detached their sense of worth from the material. They wear luxury the way a warrior wears a uniform with pride, with purpose, but never as a replacement for character. Luxury, for them, serves a function. It opens doors, establishes presence, signals seriousness. In high-stakes environments, international summits, closed-door negotiations, government advisory meetings, the symbols of success are not merely aesthetic, they are strategic. A certain car, a certain hotel suite, a certain fragrance, even a certain silence, these elements communicate that they belong, that they are not to be underestimated, that they are players in the room, not guests. But the difference lies in the relationship with these symbols. Those who are still chasing wealth often let the symbols consume them. The car becomes a personality, the brand becomes a voice. The villa becomes validation. But those who have long possessed wealth, those who have preserved and multiplied it, move differently. They can afford the finest, but are not defined by the finest. Their confidence is not rented from designers. It is carved from experience, from hardship, from legacy. When they enter a room, the luxury may precede them, but it never outshines them. Their speech, their posture, their decisions, and their silence carry more weight than any accessory. They understand the real currency is presence, not presentation. This distinction is subtle but profound. It is the difference between needing attention and commanding respect. Some of them even choose moments to tone it down, to show up in simplicity when it serves the strategy, to wear the plain dishdasha when attending rural land meetings, or to drive an unmarked car when surveying undeveloped properties. They understand context. They know when luxury elevates and when it distracts. This adaptability is not insecurity, it is intelligence. In private, many of these individuals live far more simply than assumed. Their homes, though expansive, are not chaotic with clutter or extravagance. Their meals are consistent, often traditional. Their time is spent not endlessly entertaining, but working, reading, mentoring, or planning. The opulence is there, but it is calm. It does not scream. It breathes. They also teach their children to view luxury as a responsibility, not an entitlement. That a private jet does not make you powerful how you use it, where you go, who you become after you land, that is what matters. They ensure the next generation understands that to wear something expensive does not mean you are elevated. True elevation comes from the values that dress your soul, not the items that dress your body. There is also cultural wisdom embedded in their approach. In our traditions, wealth has always been respected when it is accompanied by humility. A tent with gold embroidery is beautiful, but the host is remembered not for the tent, but for the welcome. Today's Arab millionaire, the one who endures and expands, carries that wisdom into modern life. He may own the tent, the palace, the jet, but he is still the host, gracious, measured, intentional. When they walk into luxury boutiques, they do not seek validation from the staff. When they dine in the finest restaurants, they are not impressed by the cutlery. They appreciate quality, but they are not addicted to it. Luxury serves them. It is their tool. It is their silent announcement that they know where they stand. But they never allow it to speak louder than their principles. They have seen what happens to those who let luxury become their compass. They have witnessed fortunes lost to ego, reputation ruined by vanity, families fractured by competition. So they walk a different path, one where luxury is respected but not worshipped, where it enhances their voice but never replaces it, where it protects their presence but never defines their soul. In the world of wealth, those who rise and fade are many, but those who rise and remain are few. Among Arab millionaires who have not only created wealth but sustained and expanded it over decades, there is a quiet but unshakable habit. They never stop studying. They do not confuse success with arrival. They do not consider past victories as immunity from future defeats. Their minds remain open, curious, and sharp, not because they lack confidence, but because they know that the rules of the game are always changing. To these individuals, business is not a one-time play. It is a living organism. Markets evolve, consumer behavior shifts, governments change course, technology redefines the playing field, and global dynamics move with winds that are often unpredictable. The Arab millionaire who thrives through decades is the one who treats learning not as a phase, but as a way of life. He reads not to impress, but to anticipate. He listens not to respond, but to understand. He studies not because he is unsure, but because he is prepared. In their offices you may find books on global finance next to volumes of poetry. Reports on energy transition sit beside biographies of world leaders. They do not limit themselves to industry-specific knowledge. They understand that patterns often emerge across sectors, and the smartest moves are made by those who can see across disciplines. They learn from history, from psychology, from science, from culture. They recognize that the business of wealth is also the business of people, of politics, of timing, and of emotion. These individuals are not afraid to be students. They do not allow pride to prevent them from asking questions. They sit with experts, with professors, with engineers, with young minds building code in coffee shops. They attend conferences quietly, absorbing rather than performing. They walk through trade shows not to be recognized, but to recognize opportunity. If artificial intelligence is shifting industries, they do not wait to be briefed. They ask the right people. They invest in understanding the implications before the headlines arrive. Their humility in learning is not weakness. It is power. They know that arrogance has ended many empires, and they protect themselves by staying grounded in reality. Even when they are leading billion-dollar projects, they remain students of the next wave. They ask, what are we missing? What are we underestimating? What is the small seed today that will be the forest tomorrow? They do not merely react to trends. They aim to meet the future halfway. There is also a cultural awareness to their learning. These millionaires understand the weight of representing not just themselves, but their families, their tribes, their nations. They carry the pride of their lineage while also respecting the speed of the modern world. They study because they know that legacy must be protected through intelligence, that survival in the 21st century will not be determined by land alone, but by intellect, by innovation, by adaptability. They are also deeply analytical. When they read a financial statement, they do not skim. When they hear about a new technology, they do not dismiss it because it is unfamiliar. When a new player enters the market, they do not panic, they study. What is this company doing differently? What are their weaknesses? How will the market respond? They treat competition not with fear, but with focus. They do not seek to destroy, they seek to understand. This habit of continuous learning is also woven into their daily routine. Whether through early morning reading, evening reflections, or dedicated time with thought leaders, they create space for learning amidst the chaos. Even on the move between flights, between meetings, between continents, they are consuming information. Podcasts, white papers, closed reports, private memos, their hunger for clarity never sleeps. And when they make decisions, those decisions are not based solely on instinct. They are informed by data, by case studies, by trend forecasts, by human insight. They do not gamble, they calculate, and calculation requires input. A mind fed with current knowledge is sharper, quicker, more strategic. These individuals know that their edge is not just in what they have, it is in what they understand. In private discussions, they often test ideas. They challenge their own assumptions. They invite disagreement, not as confrontation, but as calibration. They enjoy speaking with those who see the world differently, not because they always agree, but because they are trained to see that within opposing views there are often hidden truths. This is why they never grow complacent. Even when their assets grow, their titles expand, and their names enter new markets, they remain alert, because they know that the market respects intelligence more than ego. And intelligence is not a gift, it is a discipline, one that must be practiced, protected, and pursued daily, in the silence behind palace walls, in the early hours before cities awaken, in the conversations that never make headlines. True wealth is being shaped. The Arab millionaires who last, who grow beyond fortune into influence, do not rise by accident. They are sculpted by habit, sharpened by discipline, and led by vision. Their success is not found solely in skyscrapers or bank statements, but in the quiet choices repeated daily, in seeing what others overlook, in choosing counsel over crowds, in mastering the dawn before the world takes shape, in carrying luxury with dignity, not dependency, and in never allowing comfort to dull curiosity. These habits are not about lifestyle, they are about legacy. They form a code, often unspoken, but deeply respected, passed not through speeches, but through example. And though the world may never fully see the effort behind the elegance, it is there, written in every decision, every routine, every move made in silence. This is how wealth becomes more than money. It becomes direction, impact, continuity, a mark not only on markets but on history,